If you're looking for me for answers, I'm going to point you to the one who does know what to do. That's what I'm going to do. And this is what I think. I think God does know what to do in every situation. I don't think He's ever stumped. I don't think He ever turns around to the angels and says, y'all get together and help me with this. What are we going to do here? I never foresaw this, you know. Right? Yeah, you're never going to catch God off guard. And the great thing about it is He's all on our side and out to do good for us. And Judah stood before the Lord with their little ones and their wives and their children. And then upon Jehaziel, the son of Zechariah, the son of Benaniah, the son of Jeiel, son of Mattaniah. Evidently he wants you to know what his family is here. A Levite of the sons of Asaph came the Spirit of the Lord in the midst of the congregation. Okay, now God's going to tell them a few things here. Verse 15. And he said, Hearken ye, all Judah, and ye inhabitants of Jerusalem, and thou King Jehoshaphat, thus saith the Lord unto you. Ready? What's the first thing he says? Be not afraid or dismayed. Now, I don't think it's any accident that the very first thing that angels say when they appear on the scene is, fear not. Jesus says that a lot too. When He was walking on the water and they saw Him and they were afraid and terrified and they said, it's a spirit. First thing Jesus said is, fear not, it is me. Fear not, it is I. You know, this is generally how the message from heaven always starts off. Don't be afraid. Fear not. I think it's not accidental that that's the first thing we hear from heaven. Fear not. Don't be afraid. Because I think we're prone to being afraid. And I also think fear is something that needs to be dealt with before we can submit to God. Do you know what fear is? Think about what fear really is. Fear is the expectation that something bad's going to happen. Is that right? Is that right? Yeah. Now, if you're turning to God and you're calling on God and He only wants to do good for you, then you need to understand the first thing you need to do is quit being afraid and quit expecting something bad to happen. I expect good things to happen. That's just me. But God here says to him, first thing, this is encouraging if you'll receive this, fear not, don't be afraid or dismayed by reason of this great multitude. Now He doesn't deny that this great multitude's out there, but don't be afraid. See that even though there's a great multitude, even though this whatever it is that's against us is real, God's bigger than that. That's why not be afraid. God's bigger. I'm glad about that. Do not be dismayed by reason of this great multitude. Listen, for the battle is not yours but God's. The battle is not yours but God's. That's kind of a relief to me. Yeah, because otherwise I think, man, how am I going to fight this? Well, He says here, don't be afraid. The battle's not yours, it's His. Is that good? But you know what? This is the interesting thing. We can't just be passive and say that's the way. Look at what He says next. Listen. Tomorrow go ye down against them. See, resist. What did we read before? Submit to God, resist the devil. Go ye down against them. See, the battle is not yours, but it's God's, but you need to actively resist. See, go ye down against them. And behold, they come up by the cliff of Ziz, and you shall find them at the end of the brook, before the wilderness of Jeruel. You shall not need to fight in this battle. Again, boy, I'm just like, to me, I read that, yes, I agree with that. I'm glad about that. I don't like this idea of fighting, because I don't really feel like I've got what it takes. But He says, you do not need to fight in this battle, but set yourselves, see, stand ye still and see the salvation of the Lord with you, O Judah and Jerusalem. Fear not, nor be dismayed. Tomorrow go out against them. Now, He keeps saying, you notice He says, you don't have to fight, but then He says, go against them. Did you notice that? Yeah, please observe that. I had a dream about this last week, and that's why I'm talking about this. It's very strange. This hardly ever happened. I had a dream about this message, and I could hear myself telling this to you, and it was though I could see God, and I could see this passage here, and the people were going to fight, and then when they took a step, God took a step. And when they moved, God moved. But He didn't move until they moved. That's what was strange about it. And I got a glimpse of a truth here, that we can't be passive, that we've got to actively resist the things that come against us. And I'm going to try to be more practical about that in a moment. But you see, He says to them, I'm going to fight, but you go against them. That takes a little faith, by the way, to do that. You go against them, but I'll do the fighting. Well, if I believe that, that kind of gives me a little confidence. Verse 18, and Jehoshaphat bowed his head and his face to the ground, and all Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem fell before the Lord, worshiping the Lord. And the Levites and the children of the Kohathites and the children of the Korites stood up to praise the Lord God of Israel with a loud voice on high. And they rose up early in the morning and went forth. You notice they had a part to play in this, but God did the fighting. Into the wilderness of Tekoa, as they went forth, Jehoshaphat stood and said, Hear me, O Judah, and you inhabitants of Jerusalem. Believe in the Lord your God. And that means to trust in Him and to rely upon Him. So shall you be established. Believe His prophets, so shall you prosper. And when he had consulted with the people, he appointed singers unto the Lord, that they should praise the beauty of holiness, and they went before the army to say, Praise the Lord, for His mercy endureth forever. This is really remarkable. This army went out not with the archers in front, not with the guys with the swords in front, not with the guys with the pikes and the shields in front, but with a bunch of singers in front. Think about that. They went out with singers, and the singers were saying, Praise the Lord. That's interesting, isn't it? That's how they went against them. And when they began to sing and to praise, the Lord sent ambushments against the children of Ammon, Moab, Mount Seir, that were come against Judah, and they were smitten. This is kind of interesting. Let me just go ahead and read. For the children of Ammon and Moab stood against the inhabitants of Mount Seir, utterly to slay and destroy them. And when they had made an end of the inhabitants of Mount Seir, everyone helped to destroy another. And when Judah came toward the watchtower in the wilderness, they looked unto the multitude, and behold, they were dead bodies fallen to the earth, and none escaped. The whole thing was already done. The whole battle was over. But they had to go and resist. They had to put one foot in front of the other and actively, they had a part to play in this, let's put it that way. But when they got there, they found out this battle's already been fought. That's an interesting thing. And when Jehoshaphat and his people came to take away the spoil of them, they found among them in abundance both riches and dead bodies and precious jewels, and let's see here, and which they stripped off for themselves, and more than they could carry away. And they were 3 days gathering the spoil, that it was so much. How about that? This is a pretty good victory, wasn't it? Well, the point of it is, they didn't have to fight, but they had to go out. They submit to God and resist that which is in opposition. Now, let's just try to make it practical real quickly before we run out of time. How can we do that? Well, we're not going out against physical armies. This is an application. This is an account of something that happened, but we're making application to our lives. We've already been told that we're not fighting against people, right? We're fighting against unseen forces. Well, I have two suggestions for you. The first one is in 2 Corinthians chapter 10. How can we, what is our part in this active opposition, which is what resist means, to oppose actively? That's what the dictionary says. What do we do? 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3. Paul says, For though we walk in the flesh, that is, though we are living in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. In other words, it's not a physical battle with people. Verse 4. Listen, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, that means physical, but mighty through God. You notice every time we talk about God, he talks about how mighty He is in His might. Mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. Well, what are these strongholds? Verse 5. Now, please notice what he says. Casting down imaginations. See, not things out here, but things in here. Where do you do your imagining? Right here. And where do you sit and think about when fear is in your mind? When do you sit and think about all the bad things that are going to happen? Do you know what he says to do with those imaginings? Did I read that right? He didn't say dwell on them. He didn't say meditate on them. He said cast them down. See, this is... Did you know that this that we're reading about, he cast this in terms of a battle and weapons and warfare. Is that right? Right? So the first thing is, you can't allow these kind of thoughts to have a home in your mind. Thoughts of fear, thoughts of doubt, thoughts of worry. Now, like I heard, I went to Rhema Bible Training Center, and when I was there, the man who started it, Kenneth Hagin, was still alive. And he was really funny. He had a lot of funny expressions. And in speaking about this very subject, I remember one time he said he was trying to make the point that you can't help negative thoughts from passing through your mind. But like he says here, he says cast them down. The way he illustrated that is, he says you can't help it if a bird flies over your head. But you can stop him from building a nest in your hair. Right? Now, does that make the point?